Blue here. So we're back at it again with another unscripted tier list, and today I thought I'd do one for Twisted Wonderland because I actually realized that I never did one, as crazy as it is. So this is a tier list for Twisted Wonderland. I'll be going over all the base characters. Unfortunately, this tier list doesn't include the Fox and Cat Pinocchio based characters whose names I do not remember off the top of my head because that event is currently only in Japan, so US servers haven't experienced it yet. Yeah, but I'll talk about them off the top of my head real quick at the end. And then the Judge Claude Frollo based character, I unfortunately missed a lot of Twisted Wonderland. I took about a 2-year break, so unfortunately I never got the chance to play that event with the Claude Frollo character, so unfortunately he's not here either. I will talk about him though because Hunchback of Notre Dame is my favorite Disney movie, so yeah. So let's get started. Alright, so first up in this video we have Riddle Roseheart, who is based off of the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland. You know, what's funny is when I was much younger, Alice in Wonderland was not a favorite Disney movie of mine by any means. I just liked maybe one song from it. It's only as I've gotten older that I really like Alice in Wonderland, which is weird because you think it'd be the opposite given, you know, Alice in Wonderland was written for children in mind, especially young girls, but whatever. So for me, I like Riddle Roseheart not because he is the Queen of Hearts and not because I do genuinely really like Alice in Wonderland, but because he reminds me so much of CL Phantom Hive. Like, honestly, if CL Phantom Hive, or our CL Phantom Hive, if you read the manga, you know, if he never had any severe PTSD, trauma, or any of that, I feel like he easily could have been either exactly or very closely similar to Riddle Roseheart. And so for that, you know, it kind of just makes me like Riddle because I can see CL in him, and I love when people do crossover fan art of those two being best friends. The only thing is I think Riddle is kind of an asshole, but like an admirable asshole, just because like I think even when he's angry, he's kind of funny because he's just like a little guy. And I do like the touch that when he's angry, his face turns red, like the Queen of Hearts in the movie. So for me, I think Riddle's going here. I really like him. Next is Ace. So I'm not a personal fan of like the rough and tumble, loudmouth, happy-go-lucky Ryuji Sakamoto type of character. Just because those characters kind of get stale for me after a while. And even though I have quite a few Ace cards, so I've read, you know, a couple vignettes for Ace, you know, he's a character I find that doesn't have a lot of depth to him. To me, he's just like the best friend character, and that's fine and all, but to me I just feel like there's no meat on Ace's like plot bones for me to like really gravitate towards him. Even though I have like his SSR like base card or whatever it's called, I still don't like his character very much. So for me, I'm putting Ace, like, he's not terrible, he's just like not a character I like. It's just not a type of character I like, so for me, Ace is here. Now, Deuce, on the other hand, I really like. Now, at first I thought Deuce was really boring, but as soon as I got his other cards, I think his lab work card and, you know, I read through and had finished the, I want to say the Octo Vanille story at that point. Deuce really grew on me as a character because unlike Ace, who is like this happy-go-lucky, no problems, got your back kind of guy, Deuce, on the other hand, although he may seem like that, I like that he's still trying to overcome that he was a delinquent and just wants to make his mom proud because he's a mama's boy, but like a good mama's boy. And he's just a really sweet guy, and I like that all these characters like genuinely really love his company, and quite a few characters here actually seek his help. Like, for instance, Malus asks him to fix like a watch Ilya gave him and stuff. So for me, I'm putting Deuce here. He's not my all-time favorite, but the more he develops, the more he really grows on me. So Trey was a character that reminds me a lot of Makoto Tachibana from Free. And if you were a teenager in the early 2010s, you were a fan of Free. And Makoto Tachibana was my favorite character because I love the soft best friend who has your back no matter what. But also I like the development that he really did try really, really hard to be there for Riddle, despite the fact that his mom, like, banned Trey from ever seeing Riddle again, and the fact that like he's still trying to make up for it by always being like the big brother best friend. And I think that's so cute, and I love that he looks out for the other students in like a big bro or sometimes even almost a fatherly like figure, probably because he is an older brother with like a lot of siblings. And so as an older sibling myself, I really like that. So for me, Trey is going here. I love him. So Cater is really complex for me because I love him in the original Japanese text, but the English translation interpretation of Cater is very cringeworthy. For some reason, the Twisted Wonderland localization really messed with a lot of the logo and slang, I guess to be more hip with teenagers these days. So Cater says a lot of things that he doesn't say in the Japanese version about like cringe, hashtags like lines and like social media like references. And while he does make those in the Japanese version, it's a lot more subtle and less in your face and less dated, if that makes sense. Like he'll say like hashtag for the win, or he'll be like, oh, just take the L, man. And it's like it's cringe. So Cater in the English version I do not like because I think it is a terrible localization of his character, as well as I feel like the localization doesn't highlight the fact very well, the fact that Cater hides behind a social media personality because he's actually soft sad boy and he just wants to like make everyone know he's okay, and he's like the hype guy who, you know, doesn't want other people to feel the way he does. And I think that's a really sweet and interesting character, but it's completely glossed over in the English localization. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to put Cater here, because if it was the original Japanese text, I would put him probably about here. But because the English localization really butchered and fucked up his character, he's kind of like actually more here. Yeah, that makes more sense to me. Next is Azul Ashen Grotto. Almost said the name of his dorm instead. So, The Little Mermaid is one of my favorite Disney movies of all time, next to The Hunchback of Notre Dame and Tangled. And so when I was little, I was obsessed with The Little Mermaid. It was a Disney movie I played nonstop almost, and I can memorize every song by heart. When I was a kid, actually, I had like the soundtrack or something, and I played it like over and over again. I had like, you know, the swimming, singing Ariel dolls and everything. So for me, when I saw that there was a dorm based off of one of my childhood favorites and all-time favorite Disney movies, you bet your ass I was looking respectfully. So Ursula is a character as a Disney villain I really, really like, because I love that Ursula, you know, is very sly and cunning, because I think that's cool. But for me, I love Azul because he's not just a male version of Ursula, basically, but I like that he has his own character and that he's cunning and sly, and they kind of reference the fact that Ursula was kicked out of the palace in the original draft of the movie by having it be that Azul was ostracized by the mer community he was in the Coral Sea because he was a squid guy. I know that squid people have like a name, I think it's like Cecilia or whatever, I don't fully remember, but yeah, and that he used to be overweight, and so he lost weight and you know, made himself human on land so he can never be like ostracized again. And I think that's a really nice touch and callback to the original draft. I also like his ability. I think it's really cool. And I overall just really loved the Octavanel story, even though it's only just the second story in Twisted Wonderland. So for me, Azul is a personal favorite. He's going here. So Jade and Floyd are twins, obviously, because we all know Yana has a thing for twins. And so, despite the fact that Flotsam and Jetsam in the original Little Mermaid had, you know, no personality and were just echoing what Ursula would talk about, instead, Jade is like the sly businessman, almost like Red from Animal Crossing. I don't know how to describe this kind of personality. I just call it like the Kitsune or the Red from Animal Crossing personality, where he's like all smiles, but in reality he has a knife behind his back and he's gonna kill you. And then Floyd is just like the lazy, laid-back guy, but then also has a knife behind his back to stab you and laugh like a maniac while doing it. So despite the fact that these two have very drastic personalities from the original, I actually really like them. I do admit that I used to think Floyd was kind of cringe just because I used to think that kind of character was cringe, but it's kind of grown on me that Floyd is so carefree and does things just because he wants to. You know, for a lot of characters who don't have that kind of freedom, it's really like interesting to see what a character with that kind of freedom acts like, as well as I like Jade's obsession with mushrooms. I think it's very cute. Jade also slightly reminds me of Sebastian, that I have to wonder if Yana took some influence from Sebastian. So for me, I'm gonna put the Leech twins here. Next is Karim. So Karim, I think is, I'm currently finishing up the, what was it? The Scarabia storyline. Very interesting storyline. Here we have Karim, who is the dorm leader, and he's based off quite a few characters from Aladdin. Now, Aladdin is another one of my favorite Disney movies from my childhood. That was another one I would play non-stop. To this day, I still genuinely really love Aladdin, and so I'm a little sad that the representation for Aladdin is very small, but I get it, the cast is super, super small. So Karim is based off of the Sultan and a little bit of Iago, not all the way, but just like color-wise he is, because as you could see, his earring is Iago's feathers, but he's mostly based off the Sultan in the movie. And I guess I can notice a little bit of Aladdin himself too, just because he has like that, you know, upbeat, carefree personality like Aladdin has. So almost like if Aladdin were the prince, I guess. But, you know, I used to think Karim was obnoxious because, like I said, this happy-go-lucky, got your back, loudmouth, Ryuji type of character isn't my thing. But Karim has grown on me because I love a character who is like genuinely very kind, and I like that he doesn't care that he's rich and is very charitable with the other dorm mates, and he's like a big brother figure to them. If anything, he's kind of like a more extroverted Trey, and so he's really grown on me. Again, he's not my favorite just because this type of character is not my favorite, but for me, I'm putting Karim here. I like him. Okay, so next is Jamil. So Jamil, you know, I initially was not very impressed by his character because Jafar, although, you know, I understand he's very cunning and he does have a pretty good reprise song, I'm not a huge Jafar fan, mostly because what I find charming about Aladdin is the genie who makes me laugh my ass off like every time I watch it, and the music is just 10 out of 10. So, you know, a character based off Jafar, I wasn't expecting to be super like into it. But I actually really like Jamil. I like that, you know, even though he is insanely jealous of Karim because Karim is like, you know, very beloved by the dorm, and he's rich and he has to serve him. He's basically like Ignis from Final Fantasy 15 in terms of like position. And so he's very jealous of that, and it eventually causes him to overblot. But what I find interesting is the fact that even though he's jealous of him, he's mad at him, and he even like abuses Karim by like brainwashing him with his signature magic, you know, he still at the end of the day still cares for him like a brotherly figure. And I think that's why he didn't like try to do anything that would like genuinely hurt him, and instead was trying to like manipulate the situation in a way where he wouldn't hurt Karim and hurt their relationship because he still cares about him. As well as, I think it's very interesting that he has a sister because if you remember like the Aladdin, I think the TV show, and like I think a PC game or PS1 game, Jafar did have a sister. So that's really interesting that they pull from that kind of media, and it makes me hope that Azul has a younger brother based off Morgana, because I love The Little Mermaid too, no matter what anyone says. So for me, I'm putting Jamil about here just because I think he's a really interesting character, because he's actually more fitting for the dorm. I honestly think he should be House Warden just because he is the most cunning out of everybody in that dorm, and that dorm is based off of, you know, who is best represented. And if anyone can represent Jafar, it's the character based off Jafar. Next is Epel. So, Epel I thought was a very interesting character design. I honestly thought he was based off the mirror at first because of his softer, more like, I don't want to say reflective, but just lighter colors, that he looked almost like a shiny mirror to me in the artwork. But according to design notes, he's apparently based off the poison apple, which I thought was weird because the poison apple is like green, but I'm not sure where they got the purple from, but I guess, you know, maybe like a mist poison they were thinking, or like berry poison, I don't know. So Epel, I originally thought was just gonna be like the soft boy, innocent one that like we just pat their head and they just continue to be soft and innocent. But what I like about Epel is that he is secretly a country bumpkin, as it were. And so he kind of has a similar dynamic to Deuce, only instead of Deuce trying to become a better person and make his mom proud, Epel wants to do this for himself because he wants to be more elegant and beautiful like Vil. And so he realizes, you know, you can't do that if you're acting aggressive and like talking in swears all the time. And I think that's interesting to watch him embrace some would say femininity, I would say elegance, but you know, whatevs. And so for me, Epel has really become an interesting character from that, so I'm putting Epel here. I also just love his design. I think he's an adorable little pretty soft boy, so. So Vil is next. Now, Snow White, when I was growing up, was not a Disney movie I was a huge fan of, mostly because I was too young to appreciate the craftsmanship behind Snow White, and so I thought Snow White when I was much younger, having grown up with the Disney Renaissance, that it was just a bit too simple for me. Of course, I'm an adult now who appreciates animation immensely, and so for me, I appreciate the Evil Queen immensely, and now she's like one of those Disney villains that I like genuinely really like. Not a favorite, just one that I'm like, wow, what a queen. I mean, not in a good way, but you know. So Vil, I find a character who is interesting because he's based off the Evil Queen. But, you know, it's the fact that Vil is also very different from the Evil Queen despite being based off of her. He's a master potion maker, one of the top students at the school, hence why he's the house warden, because, you know, Pomfiore, house wardens are awarded that title because they make the strongest poisons. But what I find interesting is his dynamic with this world's version of Snow White, who I do not remember his name. I find their dynamic very interesting because unlike the original fairy tale and the movie where he's just jealous because he's pretty, it's genuinely a career rivalship. Because, you know, Vil wants to be a top class, like, performer and all this stuff, and he feels like he can't do that because this world, the Snow White boy has, like, everything Vil feels like he's lacking, which is, like, innocence and this purity that he feels he doesn't have because he's so cunning and manipulative and he knows how to work the industry like no one else. And so I think it's very interesting, as well as his attempts to sabotage him that causes him to overblot. I also really like his overblot design. I think it looks really cool. So for me, I think Vil is a very interesting character, and I can't wait to read more of him because I do have a couple cards of him that I haven't read the stories for. So for me, Vil is here. I actually just really like the Pomfiore dorm because I think it's so dramatic and pretty. So Rook is next, and Rook was originally an oddball for me, not because he's based off the Hunter, but because of the fact that his design, or not his design, just the fact that he acted so, I guess you could say weird or just unusual. He is very just like loyal to Vil and like treats the Savannah Claw dorm very awkwardly. And I originally just thought that was because, oh, Hunter, get it, haha, but no, it went deeper than that. What I like is that Rook actually was from the Savannah Claw dorm, used to look like a hot mess, and then he thought Vil was just so pretty that he was like, I am switching dorms and pledging my allegiance to this man. And honestly, it makes me ship them. I mean, we all know Vil it leans to one side, if you catch my drift. So for me, I think it's interesting, and I like to think that he did all this because the dude has like the biggest crush ever on Vil and like wants to smooch him. I also think Rook is just a very like elegant design, and I think he has a lot of like really gorgeous cards. So for me, I'm putting Rook about here just because like I feel like I don't know him well enough to be like, yeah, he's a Great character, just, yeah. So next is Idia. So Idia, I automatically like because he reminds me of Gregory Violet from Black Butler. And during the school arc, Gregory Violet was my favorite because I am a sucker for characters who act like L from Death Note. Also because I loved Hercules growing up when I was a kid. And so what I found interesting though was just the drastic shift because all the other villain characters and stuff are relatively accurate to that character or a good spin on it. Even their homeworld is like extremely similar. Like Azul comes from the Coral Sea, which is implied to be like maybe a neighbor of Atlantica or something. Or Riddle comes from Wonderland, clearly. But Idia's world and the underworld in general is very like high tech, and like he doesn't act like the hothead like Hades does. Idia's very introverted and shy, and I do think that's weird because, like, you know, Hades from Hercules was very loudmouth, charismatic, used car salesman kind of guy. But then you have Idia here, who is introverted but a tech genius and just kind of like holds a lot of guilt for what happened to his brother. So I think he's a very unusual character. I've heard some try to say that maybe they went the high-tech route because of the whole like Greek mythos thing. I know they do heavily lean into the Greek mythos thing, but like, I don't know, I thought the interpretation was weird. But despite the fact that he is nothing like Hades, I actually do really like Idia's character. And so for me, I'm putting Idia here. He's not top favorite, but I definitely really like him. So Ortho is a character I feel is just one of those characters whose personality is just loyal little brother, if that makes sense. Like, I get it, Idia built him to be quite literally just a robotic recreation of his little brother who died in an accident. And that's really sweet. But Ortho's personality overall, I just don't feel like I get much. Ortho is very cute though, and I love his robotic design. I think it's very unique. But overall, I feel like Ortho just, I feel like there's not a lot of meat to Ortho, if that makes sense. Maybe some later events will give more personality to Ortho or show us a different light to him. But so far, Ortho is not a character I really like very much. So for me, he's going here. Okay, Leona. Oh my god. I think Leona is the only reason I can understand why people had a crush on Kovu, okay? For context, The Lion King is one of my, again, another one of my favorite Disney movies when I was a kid. I watched The Lion King 1 and 2 non-stop as a kid. I loved it. I still listen to the songs to this day. I mean, come on, Elton John does the songs. How could they not be good? And so Scar became, you know, growing up into this day, one of my favorite Disney villains because, you know, I mean, come on, the man literally plotted a murder and did it pretty well. So, but still, you know, so because Scar is one of my favorite villains, I knew that I was gonna like Leona, but oh my god, do I love Leona. I have the fattest, stupidest crush on this man, and just, gosh, I love him so much. I love that he, like, pretends to be lazy or acts lazy, and, like, gives up on, like, achieving anything because he knows he will always be second best. And I think that's super interesting that it causes him to overblot when, like, of all characters in Savannah Claw, you know, he seems the least likely to overblot, but he does. And I think it's really interesting, and I love that, you know, he's slowly been developing to be just a little nicer to his fellow students. Just a little, though, not by much. But yeah, I love that he's, like, lazy, laid back, rude. He's almost like if Jotaro Kujo had a baby with Scar from The Lion King. I don't want to picture that in my head. I don't want to see fan art for it, but, you know, personality-wise anyway. So for me, because I love Leona so much, he's top tier. I literally will, I someday hope I can have all his cards. I know I have his birthday one already and the fairy event one. I love him. I will be going for all Leona achievements in game. Love him, 10 out of 10, moi. Next is Jack. So Jack confuses me because I'm pretty sure there's no wolf in The Lion King. Jokes aside though, I genuinely am kind of confused by Jack. as like a, like, who is he supposed to be based on? Because if everybody here is based off of something, then like, who is he based on? I don't know. I've heard some say the wolves from Beauty and the Beast. There's a lot of wolves actually in Disney movies, so nobody fucking knows which wolf he's based on. I think it's a little weird, but you know, I do like Jack, and I think he's an okay character. I like his design the most, mostly because I think his design is very cool and all that, and it's nice to see, you know, a darker skinned character, because, you know, a lot of these games don't have the best diversity. So, you know, I like Jack's design. Personality, he's okay, so for me, I'm just putting Jack here. Ruggy is a really, really cute character. I like that he's like this little shit, and I like that he's actually surprisingly loyal to Leona, even though, let's be honest, Leona does not treat him the best. But I like that he's loyal, and I think his signature spell is really funny. The idea that, like, he can make anybody, like, copy his own movements and move them like a puppet, I think that's really funny, and I think it's really interesting. So for me, I'm putting Ruggy about here. I really like him. He's cute too in design. Next is Malus. So Malus, for everybody who was like learning about Twisted Wonderland as it was coming out, Malus was the first character design we saw, and it was love at first sight to me. So Sleeping Beauty, again, a lot of the older Disney movies were not ones I grew up really appreciating because I was too young to appreciate them, and as I got older, I started to appreciate them, as well as the Maleficent live-action movie with Angelina Jolie, like, really made me love the character even more. So Maleficent is easily one of my favorite Disney villains, even if Sleeping Beauty is not my favorite Disney movie, if that makes sense. I love her design, I love her personality, I love her aesthetics. Just Maleficent is a really great villain. And so when you have a pretty boy based off of Maleficent, I am paying attention. Now, what I find interesting about Malus is the fact that he appears to be a canonical descendant of Maleficent, if, like, I'm paying attention to the lore correctly. Like, all the other Disney villains that the school talks about are more so in legend than if they actually existed, but it appears to me, at least, that Maleficent actually did exist in this story and really was Malus's, like, great-great-grandparent or whatever. And I think that's really interesting because it adds this whole level of pressure on Malus that he's the, you know, descendant of, like, the Thorn Fairy, as she's called. As well as I just feel bad for him. I mean, his father went MIA. I mean, his father might be Crowley, but that's a theory for another day. His mother's dead. His kingdom basically was, like, hanging by a thread because they're like, do we have a ruler or not? And so when Malus was born, there's this pressure, this intense pressure put on him to be a ruler because, like, he's the only one left to rule Briar Valley. And on top of that, he has to deal with the fact that, you know, he's immortal and all these characters here are likely going to be dead by the time he's king and ruling for a while. And so, you know, it's caused him to basically go mad and overblot, sure. But it's also really sad because, like, you can tell he just wants to be this quirky guy to learn more about humans because he likes hanging around abandoned places. He likes meeting normal people. You know, he just wants a friend to really like him and appreciate him. And it's sad because he's immortal, and so, you know, being so young, he has to come to grips with that, and I think that's both sad and very interesting. So for me, Malus is going here. He's easily one of my favorites. Also, the fact that his childhood lullaby was Once Upon a Dream, and, like, when he puts everyone to sleep, you know, he is singing Once Upon a Dream, and I love that so much, because that's, honestly, even though Sleeping Beauty is not my favorite Disney film, as I said, Once Upon a Dream is one of my favorite, like, old classic Disney songs, so 10 out of 10 right there. Next is Ilya. So Ilya's kind of weird because I expected him to have the same vocal range as Ortho, but this man has a very deep voice and it's very off-putting. Like, we're talking Rin from Dramatical Murder off-putting. But I think, you know, on the surface I thought Ilya was just like another little shit character like Ruggy. But as Malus' story went on, we learned more about Ilya and all the shit he went through, and oh my god, that man has so much PTSD. No wonder he feels like he's dying. So the fact that he was in love with his best friend, who was Malus' mom, who had it going on, And the fact that, his other close friend, who is presumably Malleus's father, went missing. The fact that all he found was just Malleus's egg and just had to take care of it for 200 years, like not even knowing if this potential child of his best friend was even gonna hatch, like, and then having to raise his dead best friend's child. And then on top of that, like, finding a baby from the rival kingdom that, like, whose father was clearly killed, and, like, knowing that this innocent baby is now orphaned, and he feels so guilty that, like, he disguises this baby's humanity and all that, and I think also cursed this baby with sleeping magic, I don't know, but Silver's narcolepsy is a little weird. I don't know the explanation for that. So I largely just feel bad for Ilya. In terms of design, which I normally don't mention because I think they're all fantastic designs here, but Ilya's I'm not a huge fan of. I think it's a little messy, but what I am a fan of is like his old like ninja samurai armor from when he was like in the army and stuff. I love that outfit. I think it looks really cool. For me, I like Ilya though. I always kind of thought he was based off Maleficent's Crow, just because of the fact that he has like those pink streaks, and it reminds me of the movie where Crow gets like blasted with pink magic. At least to me, I always thought Ilya was based off the Crow. I don't know what else he could be based on. But for me, old grandpa's here. I like Grandpa Ilya. Silver, now, I always thought Silver was based maybe off the sword that killed Maleficent, the spinning wheel, a lot of theories. But as soon as I noticed, like, Silver had, like, this narcolepsy, I thought it was maybe based off Aurora, but he didn't look anything like Aurora, which is weird because, like, Ville's rival, that Snow White character looks like Snow White, so I thought it was weird. But then, Ilya's flashback showed that Silver was born with blonde hair and purple eyes, so he is Aurora. And what I find super interesting is basically that beloved, alternate universe fans come up with, where, Aurora was stolen as a baby by Maleficent and raised as her daughter, which I always thought was a really cool, like, alternate universe and stuff. I really like Silver's personality. I think it's really cute that even though he tries to act like this big, strong, tough knight, he's still a prince inside, and so he can sometimes act very soft. Animals love him. He ends up falling asleep a lot. I just think he's really cute. Like, he's one of those characters who tries to act all big and tough, but then looks really adorable and pretty while doing it, and I think it's a very cute trope. So for me, I'm putting Silver here. Sebek is next. Now, Sebek is not a character I totally like, just because the, again, loud, screaming, a little too energetic for me character is a bit much for me. I am an introverted at heart, and these, like, over-the-top characters are a bit much for me. But I do think Sebek is really funny, and his lab card where he's, like, trying to fix Malleus's, like, stained lab coat or something was super funny. But overall, he's not a character I like. Ancestor, on the other hand, I am looking respectfully at. But anyway, Sebek is going about here. He's just like an okay character, Next is Crowley. Now, Crowley, I'm gonna be honest, I theorize is Malleus's father who went insane after the war or something. Like, got blasted with, like, madness magic. It's because I think it's a little weird that Malleus's father is MIA, and here's this guy who we don't know anything about. Crowley is sus. He's kind of an asshole, too. I like that he'll just, like, abandon his students and then be like, oh, look, I'm so nice. I'm giving my students a break. Like, no, you're an asshole, Crowley. Another thing is I want to see what he looks like without the mask on, because I need to know if he's hot or not. Most likely he is, because Yana designed these characters, but, I need to know for science. Regardless, though, Crowley makes me laugh a lot in the cutscenes, and so for me, I'm putting Crowley here. I do like him. So Grimm I have a love-hate relationship with. Like, I love Grimm's design. I think he looks adorable. But personality-wise, it's like if Morgana had Ryuji's personality, and I fucking hate it. And it's people talk about Paimon being annoying and all that, but who's fucking annoying is Grimm. Like, I still like him. Like, he's not a character where, he prevents me from finishing the game or whatever, but, he's not a character I'm gonna be sad if anything happens to him, because I genuinely do not like Grimm. I mean, design-wise, I love him, but, like, his personality's really hard to like, because he's kind of a fucking dick a lot of the time. But it's because he's kind of a dick that I guess he, like, helps us figure out the problem in the dorm or whatever, but I can still choose to not like him because I think his personality is obnoxious. So for me, Grim is going there. So next is Cruel. I think it's really funny. I don't know if you guys were there for this, but do you guys remember that whole like making Disney villains like sexy thing back in like what, 2013, 2014? And I think it started with the artist Sakimi-chan making like sexy versions of like Ursula and I think Maleficent and stuff like that. Well, I remember she did one on Cruella, or someone did one on Cruella, and that really blew the fuck up on the internet in 2013. And so this design immediately reminds me of that. Like, it's almost to a T the design Sakimi-chan made, which I think is a little weird. But still, I like Cruel. I think he's very spicy. But I do like his design, and I think he's kind of funny in all the like dog puns he makes. That collar though, keep it away from the students, but you know, if he uses it on the faculty, I mean, I ain't minding. I know I have such a terrible mind. I lose it when I see a pretty boy, and trust me, Cruel is a pretty boy. For me, Cruel is going here. I like him. He's a spicy teacher. What can I say? Next is Train. He is based off Lady Tremaine from Cinderella, and I thought it was really cool to make like an old strict man version of Lady Tremaine when like her deeds are so you could say feminine in nature. I don't think so, but you could say. And so I like his personality just because I think it's really interesting to see a male equivalent to Lady Tremaine. He's overall just strict teacher, you know, so he's whatever. So for me, I'm putting him here. He's just like okay, you know what I mean? Like, I just like his design and the concept more than his cat, which is based off Lady Tremaine's cat Lucifer. I love all cats, and so because he's a cat, he's going here because cats are the best. Anyway, so he is based off Gaston. I always forget his name because he looks so much like Gaston. I just call him Gaston. I know he has a name and I know it's on screen, but you know, I can still call him Gaston. I think it's really funny to make Gaston like the gym teacher, and I think it's really fitting. Also, it's a surprisingly good job at modernizing Gaston's personality too. Overall, he's just an okay gym teacher. He's just like that, like, you know, overly enthusiastic gym teacher, you know, that kind of personality. And I hate sports, and I do not like Gaston's character because he's like ew. So for me, I'm putting him at ew because he is ew. Next is Sam. He runs the like student shop or whatever that like students buy like extra food and supplies from. So Sam was actually censored in the English version to remove the skeleton paint on him because there was some there's always been kind of issues with Dr. Facilier because of the whole voodoo thing, and so sensitive parties you know, don't like the certain motifs that people think is associated with voodoo when it's not. And so because he has like these skeleton markings, even though it's meant to represent friends on the other side, you know, people found the skeletal markings, I guess, to be offensive or could be offensive, so they were censored in the English version, and it looks very awkward in the English version because you can tell it was supposed to be there, but then it's not. For me, I did not think his skeletal markings were voodoo in any way. I thought it was like Mardi Gras, because, you know, costume, you know, New Orleans, you know, that. I do like Sam's personality, though. I like that he's like this kind of like ready to make some money businessman. I don't think he fucks anybody over, though, unlike Dr. Facilier. And I also just really love Sam's design. I think his design in both versions, either censored or not censored, look really nice. Though the censored version does look a little awkward because like you can tell where they like kind of like painted over to block out the skeletal design, which is unfortunate, but still, I really like Sam. He's going here. And that would be all the characters on this tier list. However, there were a few forgotten. There were the two characters based off of the cat and fox from Pinocchio. I'm not a huge Pinocchio fan, even though I do love their designs because Yana can do no wrong in my eye. But Pinocchio as a idea is not my favorite, but I do think it's really interesting that cat characters mute, just like in the original Pinocchio. So for me, I would put them probably here. They're kind of mid. They're okay. And then there's a character based off of Judge Claude Frollo from Another School, and Hunchback of Notre Dame is one of my favorite Disney movies of all time, and so because of that, like, I automatically love his character design, but also because he gives me phobic, even though they are that way, if you catch my drift. Basically a homophobic homosexual, if you are okay, if people are okay with me saying that. And I think that would be interesting. Obviously they never would do that, but I think it would be interesting if he was. Overall though, I love his design and I think it's really interesting. So instead of the whole like Romani people bad like in the original film and novel, instead he's like races towards like magical creatures like Malus and Idia and Azul. And I think that's interesting, like a okay, like we don't want to go that far and reference real world tragedies kind of thing. Mostly I just love his design and I love the reference to the original musical. One of my favorite motifs is that when he's disgusted, he pulls out like Esmeralda's like a handkerchief version of Esmeralda's scarf to like cover his nose. And I think that is so funny and so interesting. So for me, I would put him here just because like I love Hunchback of Notre Dame, one of my favorite movies. So, and that would be it. As you can see, there are a lot of characters I like in Twisted Wonderland. Mainly a lot of characters I feel like I just don't jive with because I feel like their personalities are just not something I vibe with very much when it comes to a fictional character. And as you can see, my favorites are a little indulgent because notice all of them come from my favorite childhood movies. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this unscripted Twisted Wonderland tier list, and if you guys want me to make any more tier lists, you know, let me know down below, as well as in the description will be my other tier lists I've done for Honkai Star Rail, Genshin, Vocaloid, etc. So, as always, let me know down below. Hey guys, thanks for watching! If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you're new. If any of you would like to help support my channel in any possible way, my Ko-fi page is down below in the description, along with all of my social media. For any subscribers, new or old, who'd like to help with video ideas, or maybe just want to talk about anime or something, I have a fan server linked down below. See you next time!